Have you ever woken up in the morning not feeling well, so you go to the doctor and they prescribe you antibiotics? If so, you are on the receiving end of a whole bunch of bacteria inside of you trying to take you down. Good job surviving. They did this with their own secret language. They were able to stay hidden from your immune system long enough for them to grow and divide and then attack all at once. Now, how could such tiny microorganisms even manage this? They did this through a process called quorum sensing. A bacteria is a single-celled organism, so alone, it can basically do nothing. However, the one thing bacteria are best at is growing and reproducing. They remake hundreds of themselves. Now, if all these bacteria that have been reproduced communicate, they are much more powerful. The issue is, bacteria are incredibly simple creatures. They're barely more than a cell membrane and some DNA, so they don't have our ears, our mouths, they don't have Snapchat to communicate like we do. Instead, they communicate through little chemical molecules called autoinducers. An autoinducer is a chemical signal sent up from one bacterium to be picked up by another signal receptor. When the signal receptor is triggered by the autoinducer, it starts a signal cascade, creating a series of chemical reactions inside the bacterial cell. This series of reactions is essentially the bacterial way of processing information and creating a response. Each species also has a slightly different chemical makeup for their autoinducer, so that way bacteria can tell the difference between the species and it can change the response that comes out of the signal cascade. Cells also have far more than one receptor. Keep in mind, their goal is to communicate with as many others as possible, so the cell wants to be able to receive a lot of signals at once. When they receive a lot of signals at once, the receptor will trigger a different response. The response is that there's now enough bacteria to start an action that they want to complete. Think of it this way. It's like the bacteria have their own secret little group chat that only they can read. They start by all just sending out the signal telling each other they're there, giving each other an idea of how many are around them. Once they realize that there's enough to create their little team, then they're able to send out an action molecule. This signal tells all the other bacteria that it's time to start the action. In this case, they're releasing toxin. Now, 4 cells are not going to be able to produce enough toxins to take down a human host. But when millions start to work together and communicate, that's how things like bacterial infections happen in our own bodies. Let's meet Fred. In Fred, there's a culture of bacteria waiting to infect him. What poor Fred doesn't realize is that currently the bacteria are releasing and receiving signals, preparing for when there's enough of them. And once the bacteria receive the signal that there's enough around them, they can send the signal to send out toxins and take down Fred. Fred doesn't stand a chance when those sneaky bacteria use their secret code to attack all at once. If it wasn't for quorum sensing and the bacteria's ability to get millions working together, Fred would have never been taken down. So, while Fred may not have gotten his happily ever after, an amazing feat of science did occur, and we can still celebrate that.